Important, and we don't just have two languages in this country, and that's something our government realizes, and providing to support to communities to make sure that we don't lose languages is extremely important. I want to recognize we're on the traditional territory, and the very beautiful traditional territory of the Syilx Nation. I look behind me, this is what we're here to celebrate. This is a really great day. I'm thrilled that I'm able to be here. I'm here with my great friend. I'm going to work with Chief Clarence. I'm going to work with the local community. I'm going to work with my good friend George in the province of BC to get this done. We know that we have a huge opportunity. I have 3 kids. These are the kind of legacy projects. You can do this. And I look at Grand Chief. We talked about how his grandkids will be running around with my kids here, with your kids, your grandkids, and saying that we did something extraordinary, that we had a vision. We decided that we're finally going to take action and move, quickly with the communities in a transparent way, bringing everyone along, hearing from everyone to create a national park reserve in South Okanagan, Similkameen. It's going to be really important that we do that together, that we do that with the peoples, the Indigenous peoples who live here. It's something that's a long time in coming, and I think that we now have there's been a lot of good work that's been done. There's a lot more work to be done, but I think that there's huge opportunities to ensure that we also respect the traditional uses and activities, and make sure that the Indigenous communities have the opportunity to benefit culturally and economically from a new national park reserve. And the last thing I'll just say is, once again, the importance of protected areas. So our government has made a commitment as part of our commitment to the United Nations that we're going to protect 17% of our land area. We're going to protect 10% of our oceans. And that is just a really important thing that we can all do together. That's Canadians love our natural beauty. Parks are free this year. I don't know if you know that. National parks and historic sites. Who's been to a park or historic site? Okay, well, if you haven't been, go. We're free. They're great. On est tellement chanceux au Canada d'avoir des parcs nationaux, des lieux historiques qui sont de grande valeur. Nous vivons dans un pays extraordinaire, et je dis ça comme quelqu'un qui travaille traveling around the world. And protecting our special places is really a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to show the world that we can act together, that we can bring together Indigenous people working with different levels of government, working with ranchers, working with farmers. We worked to create Rouge National Urban Park, where we brought together environmentalists and farmers. It's not impossible because everyone cares about the land. You may have a bit of a different vision. But I think that is the opportunity to show the world that Canadians understand that we're very lucky to have this beautiful planet, but that we need to act together to protect this. And creating this park will be an amazing opportunity to showcase this. So you have my commitment that I will work very hard, that I will listen to everyone, and I know there are lots of different perspectives. That's normal, that's good. But I really do believe the environment and the economy go together, and we can find a path forward, and we need to do that because we owe it to our kids and grandkids. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, and this is a great day.
Next, I'd like to call up.
We know that there are a range of interests here, and the process that we're going to begin shortly and engage in will be one to bring those interests together, to ensure that we do it with a new transparency and a new sense of a partnership. But the establishment of a park in this area offers so many opportunities. It offers an opportunity to model new management forums for national parks, and by extension, ultimately, to our provincial parks. That's important. because my government and I know the federal government have both committed to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. We need to bring that into reality. And by working on projects like this together, partnerships and co-management models, we can give that life, we can give it meaning, and as Chief Louis said to me, we can replace words with action to show people that we really mean what we say. But that is important. This area is one of the most ecologically diverse in Canada. It's a unique ecosystem. You just have to look around to see that. There are over 60 endangered species in this area, and we need to take concrete measures to protect them, particularly in an era of climate change. Even with the best intentions of every province in Canada, of the federal government, and of nations around the world, and we know that we have a ways to go to get best intentions from everywhere. Even if we were to take all the actions that we need to take, we know there will be impacts. So we have a responsibility to protect unique areas like this, to ensure that we have areas where ecosystems can repair themselves, can adapt, can thrive, where there are corridors for wildlife, where we take our responsibility to protect the air, land, and water for future generations seriously. I look forward to working in full partnership. I look forward to coming back for the announcement of the formal establishment of the park. I look forward to modeling for British Columbians what reconciliation and partnership looks like with First Nations, with communities, with the federal government. Most importantly, I look forward to a future where children and grandchildren will look back on today and the days that follow today as a day that made a difference for their part of the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister George. As Minister Catherine mentioned, how far this project goes back, I dusted off an old report presented in 2002, which Senator Ross helped put together. So today wouldn't be a complete day without having Senator Ross to come up and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Chief Clarence. Minister McKenna, Minister Heyman, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip. I think there's some other chiefs here. The mayors that are here, members of Parliament here, and if there are members of legislature, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I didn't expect to be called upon to speak, but thank you, Clarence. I'm pleased that you gave me this opportunity, because what I want to say, this is the traditional territory of the Okanagan Nation, but it is also my home. This is where I grew up, and this is such a grand day to me to see this progress that is being made to establish this as a national park reserve and a national park. It will be a unique park in the history of parks in Canada. And I want to thank all of those who participated in this process. First of all, as Clarence mentioned, I'd like to go back. He's not here, but I'd like to thank the Prime Minister, Prime Minister Chrétien, who received the delegation and said, yes, Ross, we'll make a park for you. I'm going to phone him as soon as I get home today and say, guess what? We made it. And Minister Sheila Copps was the Minister of the Environment at that time. It was very supportive. But more than that, there is a group of people here, so many of you, who have participated in this process to make this happen. All the hard work, beginning with putting this brochure together and working tirelessly for the last 15 years. I'd like to especially thank Steve Furr, who is my member of Parliament, the member in Kelowna, who again has been able to pick up the torch for us in Ottawa and pursue the development of establishing this as national park. And my friend Clarence, who was there with us in Ottawa in 2002, has carried the...
Ross, we're getting old.
Just me, Clarence. And I embarrassed Clarence about this. I knew Clarence's grandfather, and who was a Grand Chief, and I mean grand in the way of grand and great start. And I spent many hours with him, and I remember we lived just on the border of the reserve, and yeah, I remember that cattle guard, Clarence. But Clarence's grandfather used to ride his horse past our place, and it would be about this time of the year, and I'd be busy in the yard, splitting wood and piling it, and he'd ride his horse in, and he'd look at me, and he'd say, "Yeah," he said, "White boy, it's going to be a cold winter. You're piling a lot of wood." Anyway, I'm a little bit nostalgic about this. I'm a little emotional. I just want to thank everybody again for all of you who've participated. And Minister, thank you very much for picking it up and taking it where it is. And Minister Heyman also. It is a grand day. Thank you all.
I'd like to call on our Grand Chief. Stuart, we're getting old. Who's been representing our people for a long, long time. And he's not only been chief of the Pentictinian Band, he's been our Grand Chief of the Okanagan Nation Tribal Council, and also represents all of our people throughout this province, is the Union of BC Chiefs president for many, many years, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip.
Freezing. Waihaska Hisnak Seal Esquis Asiu. In our Seelichan language, that's simply good day, my dear friends and relatives. My traditional name is Asiut. And it's a name I carry with great pride and translates into loon. I first of all want to acknowledge Chief Clarence Louie. I've known Clarence ever since he was a very young man. And I'm absolutely amazed at the accomplishments and the contributions he has made to the Syilx people, to Indigenous and Aboriginal people right across this country in terms of his demonstrated leadership, his sense of vision, his ability to have the courage of his convictions and stand his ground and make sure that in spite of the the dynamic of democracy, of differing perspectives, he always perseveres, and as a consequence we have a beautiful facility like this to come together and share our ideas and our sense of vision of the future. I'm absolutely thrilled about today's announcement and what it represents. And for those of you that have known me over the years, I'm not easily thrilled. But I want to acknowledge Senator Ross Fitzpatrick and former Chief Barb Allison and Chief Jonathan Kruger, former Chief Jonathan Kruger, because they were the ones that and Chief Clarence Louie, of course, playing a lead role, who came together 15 years ago and talked about the need for this national park. And as is the case in all issues, there's an ebb and flow. And I remember Senator Fitzpatrick and I didn't see eye to eye. And I remember Barb beating on me, because I wasn't singing along with the rest of the choir with regard to establishing the national park. But as you all know, there was an ebb and flow in the issue, and we did conduct a feasibility study several years ago, and made the decision that this was something that we needed to do. And unfortunately, the last time out, the music died as a consequence of a very intransigent federal government and provincial government who refused to engage on a tripartite basis. They said, no, this is a bilateral process between the federal government and the provincial government, and that's just the way it is. And we said, well, that's absolutely unacceptable in today's world, and we got up and we left the table. Well, I can tell you with great certainty we're back, and you can see the evidence of the 3 flags up here. And this is something that is going to happen. And during the course of our discussion earlier today, we did talk about grandchildren and legacy and the responsibilities that we all carry for future generations. And with the with the undeniable, irrefutable evidence of the devastating impacts of climate change and global warming and wildfires and flooding events and the threat to wildlife and endangered species, we all carry a higher burden of duty to the natural world. And we have to work in collaboration to fulfill our responsibilities. So as a grandfather, I'm really glad to be here, to feel the sense of unity and to commit to the establishment of a national park. So I look forward to the process. I know that there will be a dialogue, and there will be long after we're gone. So it's an incredibly beautiful day, and I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be here to witness this special day in our collective history. Mike Lindeman.
Lindeman Stewart, Grand Chief. I'd like to recognize some other people that are here, because tourism is so important, not just to our province, but especially to the Okanagan, South Okanagan. Glenn Manziak from POTA, Tourism Board. And of course the mayors, Mayor Ron, thank you for being here. Mike Campo from the town of Osoyoos, Limlin. Alan Manziak, or no, Glenn. Glenn, where's Glenn at? There's Glenn right there. Thank you, Glenn, and for all the work you do for tourism for the entire region. Thank you. It's so many, many years later, good things often take a long time to get done. They don't happen quickly, but they take a whole group of people to make it happen. And we look forward to revitalizing this project that was dropped a few years ago. And I want to recognize some of our people that were involved back then that are no longer with us. Doug Crow, Chief Keith's dad, was part of the working group back then. Sarah Allen, member of the Sioux Indian Band, who's no longer with us. Janine Terbasket, member of the Lower Snoqualmie Band, who's no longer with us. And Ethan Baptiste. Those are a few members that worked on this project that are no longer with us. I want to thank Robert Edwards back there for working on this project many, many years ago. And most people don't realize that my connection with national parks goes back to 1976. most Native youth back in those days didn't leave the res, didn't go very far. And the first job I ever had off the Osius Indian Band was I wrote a letter about national parks. And the national park had this summer student project. You had to write letters and you had to win a spot. So I wrote a letter and I won a spot. And I remember my auntie picking me up, Tilly Kruger, driving me all the way to Kootenai National Park. I didn't want to go. I never left the res for work. That was back in 1976. And she dropped me off there. And I spent the summer there with 16 other youth, 8 non-native and 4 native. And I remember the camp counselor telling our group, I know none of you want to be here. I know you're all homesick. But I'll guarantee you this, at the end of the summer, working in this national park, none of you will want to leave. And they were so right. At the end of the summer, we're all crying as kids, 16 years old. We didn't want to leave. We wanted to stay working in that national park. I actually wanted to be a park ranger. That was my first goal as a youth for a career. So when I met some of the people today from Revelstoke National Park, I thought, you're so lucky to be working in a national park. You're so lucky to have a career working in a national park. I was down in Yellowstone National Park a couple of summers ago on a motorcycle ride. Whether it's in the US or Canada, those national parks also had opposition. But once they're there, it doesn't take very long for people to realize it was the best decision ever made. Because national parks are our country's gems. Those of us that go to national parks, they're gems of our country. So with that, I want to thank Past Mayor for being here. Nice to see you here.
Thank you.
And this issue is so important. And we're going to have our differences. The working committees from Penticton Indian Band, Chief Chad and Chief Crow, we're going to have our differences. But we look forward to getting this committee going again. As I mentioned, many of our people put time and effort that are no longer with us here. And it's our responsibility to carry on the work that they started. So with that, Sherry, thank you for being here to share the language with us. And the language is going to be part of this national park. The Okanagan language has to be part of this national park. So with that, for the media that are here today, we will set up over here on the side with the ministers and with the chiefs to take questions from the media. And I want to thank all of those that came here today. Lim Lim, thank you.